There's a child in all of us that we need to begin to make it clear that if no one else believes in you, I do. If no one else is going to be happy in the skin you're in, I'm going to be happy. And so I can't do that if my self-esteem and self-worth is based on what everybody else thinks of me. I can't do it if my self-esteem and self-worth is based on whether or not I'm started, whether or not I'm rich, whether or not I'm famous, whether or not, I'm dating somebody that loves me. How I feel about me must not be the responsibility of anyone else, and it cannot be based on titles, cash flow, and who gives approval.
Guys, I am so incredibly excited to share this week's guest with you today for so many reasons. It's hard to even know where to start. He is my lifelong mentor, my counselor from the University of Michigan. He is a social worker and was heavily trained in psychology. He's also an associate athletic director. He wears many hats. He is the Greg Harden. This guy saved my life in a lot of ways, and I do not say that lightly. I was in a very, very dark place mentally my 4 years at Michigan, and he saved me from going down a completely unfavorable path. He was the one person on campus who I trusted and who believed in me unconditionally, and he saw me and saw things in me that I couldn't even see in myself at that time. And at a pivotal time of self-development, the ages between 18 through 21 years old, our brains are incredibly malleable at that point in time. So Greg was really the first adult outside of my parents, outside of any coaches I had ever had, who I felt like really actually had my back at all costs and really actually cared about me. And to have somebody in my life at that point in time was truly a godsend. And without Greg, I do not think I would be here doing this right now, period. This is why I am so incredibly passionate about mental health and wellness. Because they don't teach you how to live a fulfilled life internally in school. There are no classes about emotional intelligence, mental fitness, internal healing work, etc. Not to mention the stigma surrounding mental health in sports and life beyond. I can't tell you how many people still get uncomfortable when I bring up the fact that I think everyone should have a therapist. It's like, okay, I don't get why the stigma's still here. We can't do this by ourselves. We can't possibly get through life by ourselves. Mental health is something that in sports especially is an unspoken topic. It's taboo, and I wish to expose it because I'm just done with this being behind closed doors. I know so many people who have gone through their own journey to get to a healthy place that I'm just done with it being this hidden issue. It's something that actually brings us all together. Every single person struggles at some point in their lives. Every single person goes through various challenges behind closed doors, and it doesn't mean that everyone has to come out and exploit all of their issues, but what I'm saying is it shouldn't be this taboo thing that we go find a third party of some sort to get any sort of help. Like, it's ridiculous to me. Like, I truly am of the belief that everyone either needs a coach, a therapist, somebody, a consultant, somebody that can look in on their lives as a third party and give them an objective point of view. It's so helpful. It's so healing. We all need a place and a space to just get things out. Anyways, as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this subject. And honestly, everything that Greg has to share is so good. He is so good at what he does. And I'm so happy to lend his insight to all of you because he gives so many helpful tools. This topic really goes back to my first podcast when I shared why I'm even doing this and how the external world cannot validate the internal journey that you need to seek for yourself. Mental imbalance does not discriminate, and it does not mean that you are ill. It doesn't own you. It doesn't identify you. It's just something that you can manage and healthfully, I think I made up a word, that you can deal with in a healthy way. And it can happen to anyone. And just because you have the perception of a quote-unquote dream life as the star athlete or star celebrity or star on Instagram or fill in the blank, whatever it is that you think that person has the perfect life, It's not true. It's an illusion. Nobody has a perfect life. And even those who you think have this charmed life, it certainly doesn't mean that their internal state is at complete peace. I would guarantee that almost everybody's going through something. I would say that athletes are even more at risk for mental anxiety, depression, health risks. Because number one, you're already a type A person, usually, if you're playing a sport at a Division I level or professionally. Number two, you wouldn't have gotten that far if you didn't listen to constant criticism and coaching from the outside, which is not a bad thing, but it can add up to certain belief systems that may not serve you for the rest of your life. And number three, the level of pressure on the outside never measures up to the amount of pressure that these athletes tend to put on themselves, but there's no open forum for them to talk about it. And it is encouraged in some athletic programs to go talk to somebody, but I don't think it's encouraged enough. And I don't think that athletes have enough of a voice to really speak out when they are struggling. I was one of them. I didn't even know how badly I was struggling until I reached a point where I was like, okay, if I don't get help, I don't even know the person I'm turning into, and quite frankly, I don't like it. So that was really the turning point for me. And that's why literally every conversation that I talk about mental health, I give credit to Greg, because he was somebody that was so pivotal in my life. Like, he saved me from a lot of things. He is a voice of reason that dedicates his life to just holding space 9 hours a day to these student athletes who are struggling. He's changed the lives of thousands and thousands of athletes, not even just mine. And he's worked with the Tom Bradys of the world, the Desmond Howards of the world, but he's also worked with so many people that have never made it beyond the college level in their sports, some not even finishing college or college athletics per se, because of their struggles. Greg is somebody that will talk to just about anybody and make them feel like they're once again in their own skin, happy to be in their own skin, and living a life that is truly theirs. He helps you find who it is that you are and gain that self-awareness. He changed my life. So we get into the work that we did during my time at Michigan. I am more than happy to be open about my struggles and what I dealt with in college. I think they're transferable than just beyond sports. I think it's an everyday struggle for a lot of people to find self-worth in things that are outside of their titles or their external world outside of them. And he just walks through the key components of mental health, what makes us human beings and what creates conflict in our minds, and how to manage them and to develop mental fitness. We so much focus on our physical appearance and whether or not we're in shape on the outside, but have you ever thought about how your brain is doing? Like how your mind, how you're talking to yourself, how you're treating yourself with certain behaviors, how you're introspectively evaluating your internal world every day? That's mental fitness. And that's something that I would love to see more people get on board with, because it's truly helped my life. Greg is so smart. Everything I've learned in Greg's office for those 4 years that I was with him, every week that I would meet with him, it still holds true today. He's a second father to me. He's opened my eyes to the world. He opened my eyes to my world. He brought me even closer to myself, to finding myself, and helped me discover my inner truth. And he saw my light when it was significantly dimmed with a lot of negative self-talk and some negative external situations that were happening at the time, and definitely negative thoughts and behaviors as well added to that. He reframed my brain to be healthy again. He cares about his people. He is so smart. He himself has dealt with an incredible journey to getting to where he is, and it hasn't been easy. But I adore him so much, and I really, really, really hope you enjoy a glimpse into my mental health journey, but also a glimpse into the ways you can sharpen your own mental fitness and come away with some tools of your own to help you get started on that path or continue on that path wherever you're at. I hope you enjoy. I say we start right now. What do you say?
Talk to me.
Okay. First of all, welcome to my podcast.
Yes.
Remember when I sat in your chair and we talked about the idea of having a show together, some way, shape, or form, having you and I just jamming out on a show?
I do remember, and I'm excited that this is was it a precursor to the future? Who knows?
Exactly. Well, this is the closest thing I can get for that right now. But I am not holding out in the fact that we can't still do that show idea. Anywho, Greg Harden, the myth, the man, the legend. Welcome to my show. First of all, we know all the cool people you've been able to work with. We know the Tom Brady's of the world, the Desmond Howards of the world, Michael Phelps. I mean, the list of Olympians and incredible athletes go beyond measure. But you even took the time to work with people like myself who were far and few between from achieving that level of athleticism and achievement. But anywho, I would like to get an introduction from you just so people can relate to maybe your background, where you come from, and what the story of Greg Harden is leading up to this point of where you are.
Well, that's a wide open door.
Take it wherever you want to go.
Well, I was born and raised in Detroit, proud and pleased to be from Detroit. I had a stellar career in terms of high school track, ran track, played a little football, had the time of my life, was transformed as a result of being involved in athletics. Had a plan on going, as a matter of fact, I went to the University of Michigan to run track and to join the football team, and that didn't work so well. And remember, it was a turbulent time in the United States of America. Mm-hmm. And the attitude that I had and the attitude that I thought the institution had was not a good match at that time. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, I ended up going back to Detroit, planning on working, raising a family, and somehow I was aware of the fact that I didn't flunk out. I could go to school if I wanted to. And so I paid for school myself, came back, and then over time, finished my bachelor's degree, then went on to get a master's degree. Never expected to be in social work or in clinical therapy or doing anything like this. If you had told me that's what I would be doing, I would have laughed at you. However, God has a sense of humor. And you tell him your plan, and he's amused, and then he says, no, you'll do this. And so helping people became my passion. It was something I would do for free. And of course, I tell anyone that'll listen, find something you would do for free and then figure out how to get paid for it. So talking to people, encouraging people, lifting people up, pushing people towards excellence, it's something that I'm passionate about, something that just gets me excited. And as a matter of fact, when I look at you, all I can think about is how much fun we had once we got past the original, the startup. The startup is like, and then how did that feel? Well, share with me your ideas about what's going on in your life. And you were more fun than bubblegum.
Oh.
You remember how much fun bubblegum was.
Yes.
To see your evolution, to watch you go from the walk-on, disenchanted, disappointed individual to a person who I knew would be successful in anything that they would do. To see you right now in this day and age, shining and beaming and being unbelievably dynamic human being, I knew that's who you were, and athletics was merely a stepping stone. I'm sorry, I may have deviated, but just watching that smile on your face just gets me worked up in terms of really understanding that you gave me an opportunity to help somebody, and we can remind anyone that's listening to your podcast that I've worked with hundreds, thousands of individuals, and most of them you will never know their names, but they are shakers and movers and dynamic entities who, if you had a chance to employ them, you better jump at that opportunity.
Right. Well, thank you for those kind words and accolades, but I have to thank you because you were the first person that saw that in me. Yes, my family did. Yes, my siblings did, but it's different when you get to a place where you're completely on your own, i.e. college, and when you're completely drowning and lost, which I was with Michigan volleyball, and you basically picked me up off of the floor made me come to terms with my inner child and work through all of the damage, so to speak. And a lot of that was self-inflicted. A lot of it was external, but a lot of it was self-inflicted as well. So I want to back up to the first time you and I met, because when people look at my life now, they see the cameras and the lights and the makeup and the hair and the, oh my gosh, you work in sports, what a glamorous job you have. And it's so similar to the mental preparation required in athletics. But I would
Yes.
like to back them back up to a day and age where I was at rock bottom.
19 years old.
19 years old.
I believe
Maybe
you were 19 years
18.
old when I first met you.
Yeah, you're right. And when I first walked into your office, I don't think I spoke 2 words before
The
the first
tears.
the first question you asked. So what can I do for you today? And I was just like, oh, whoosh.
But
So,
it was a safe. You could tell that it was a safe place. You could
yes,
tell that
yes.
you weren't going to be judged, and you started letting it out immediately.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, that's really gave you an advantage
Hmm.
because you were hungry. You weren't just sick. We weren't just focusing on a pathological concern.
Yeah.
You were ready to change. You were looking for a solution. You were looking for a way of seeing the world differently and seeing yourself differently. You may not have known that's what
You're right. You
but you
saw
were standing at a crossroads.
that. No, I had no idea. I just thought I wanted to play volleyball better.
That's all you wanted to talk about, playing volleyball. They want to start me. They want to look at me. I'm just a walk-on, and they treat me like I'm, the red-headed stepchild. And
A theme in my life, by the way.
I gave you a violin and
Yeah. Yeah. Explain to people, what was the first thing you said back to me? Do you remember?
nope. What'd I say?
You looked at me with a soft smile on your face and you said, the inner child in you needs to grow up. And I was like, that was not what I was expecting.
But think about it. What people don't understand is 17 to 23 years old. And people come to play volleyball. They come to get a degree from Michigan. They don't know they're coming to grow up. That's the period of time where self-autonomy and being that person who has to decide whether or not your life is going to work and how you see yourself and what you're going to base your self-esteem on, that's between 17 and 23 years old. You got to figure out who you are. Mom and daddy have done all they can do. Whoever raised you has done all that they can do. And at this point, you've got to take over. And if you're feeling sorry for yourself, you won't have the breakthrough. And so to grow up is it's one of the most difficult. You hate it when somebody says it.
No.
You need to grow up. But what we talk about is like, there's a child adolescent. There's a child in all of us that we need to begin to make it clear that if no one else believes in you, I do. If no one else is going to be happy in the skin you're in, I'm going to be happy. And so I can't do that if my self-esteem and self-worth is based on what everybody else thinks of me. I can't do it if my self-esteem and self-worth is based on whether or not I'm starting, whether or not I'm rich, whether or not I'm famous, whether or not, I'm dating somebody that loves me. How I feel about me must not be the responsibility of anyone else, and it cannot be based on titles, cash flow, and who gives approval.
God, that's so good. And it applies every time I learn that same lesson in adult life. I always think back, I'm like, God, Greg was right. And I go back to my notes often with you because these are the fundamental things that we learn. So I imagine that kind of wisdom that you imparted upon me are the same words of wisdom and processes you guide the Tom Brady's of the world through and the Desmond Howards. So people from the outside looking in on a charmed life might not understand that those are the fundamental qualities to actually having a charmed life. And it all starts from within.
I can't teach you how to be a libero. I cannot teach you how to spike the ball. I cannot teach Michael Phelps how to enter the water with a 45-degree angle on his backstroke to be perfect, how to spin it on the wall. I can't teach Desmond Howard how to catch. I certainly can't teach Tom Brady how to throw. All I can teach you, if no one else believes in you, I need you to believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
All I can imagine telling Desmond Howard, you've got to decide, with or without football, your life is going to be amazing. How are you going to tell Tom Brady at 19, 20 years old, who's a football junkie, that you've got to decide, Tom, with or without football, this is the most difficult lesson I can give you. You've got to decide that you're going to be happy being Tom Brady. You're going to be happy being Desmond. You're going to be happy being Michelle, with or without your sport.
Or
A hush falls over the crowd.
Yes,
you know,
seriously.
Because you get a headache just thinking about, no, but I came here to play volleyball.
Because it's your identity for so long.
Yes.
That's all you know. And that's
And
all you've been praised for. It's your achievement-based motivation system of, I will only receive love if I'm good at this.
Yes, because I've gotten attention, affection, approval, and acceptance because of the sport. People look at me, they notice me, they like me, they give me medals, and like they cheer. And just think about it. There's some sports that there's no confusion that they think I'm a gymnast, because I've been a gymnast since I was 4. I'm a swimmer. Mm-hmm. I've been a swimmer since I was 2.
Right.
So all of a sudden, some nitwit is telling you, with or without swimming, you've got to decide. Well, how do you sell that, Michelle? You may ask. You sell it by saying, we can increase the chances of you getting on that volleyball court if you begin to see yourself as more than a volleyball player. If you begin to see yourself as a whole person, and volleyball being this part of it, and your life being this, all of a sudden volleyball is no longer who you are, it is what you do. Mm-hmm. So Tom, football is not who you are, it's what you do. You just happen to do it better than most. Michael Phelps, you're more than a bloody swimmer. I mean, Michael Phelps didn't even have a childhood. I mean, at 12, he was identified, you're going to be an Olympian. If you're identified at 12 to be an Olympian, guess what you have to do? Train like an Olympian, which means you have no life. At 12, 13, 14, at 15, he's in the Olympics. By the time he's 19, he's expected to win it all, and he does. And you wonder why he's acting out at 22. Right. He ain't never been a kid.
Right.
I see me as a regular person. See me as a real person. You understand? Mm-hmm. So half the fun is teaching people that if they become more effective as a human being, as a person, they'll be a better athlete. If you're managing your emotions, if you're building yourself up instead of tearing yourself down, if your self-talk, it can be altered from negative self-talk to positive reinforcing self-talk. And that's not about your sport. That's about what's in your head. Mm-hmm. That's mental fitness. You understand physical fitness. What we're talking about is developing mental fitness. We can talk about mental health all you want, but everyone is not mentally ill. But you can increase your mental health, whether you're mentally ill or whether or not you're just trying to be the best possible you that you can become. Mm-hmm. How to be the best you.
I think, yes, how to be the best you. That's such a powerful statement. And I think for me, in my situation, not that I'm a Michael Phelps level, but I think we can talk openly about the struggles that I had and what we had to work through. So if you're looking at, I'm trying to take this and make it transferable for other people. How do you get somebody who doesn't want to detach their identity from their sport? I was one of them. I thought volleyball was what made me, me. And I didn't realize I had to pull back so many layers to figure out who the heck I was in that process. And when you're 18 to 23 years old, that's a lot to dig through. And everything you've built your identity upon, basically the foundation is gone. So you have to rebuild yourself up. How do you do that?
Well, but think about this. How do you hook? Your first question is, how do you get someone to even consider what you're saying? By getting them to understand that you see their vision of wanting to be the best in their sport, or in their job, or in their career, or in their relationship. And you say, I can increase the chances that you will play if you transform yourself into seeing yourself as an amazing human being. If you begin to see yourself as someone who is worthy, someone who is capable, qualified, who's confident, we increase the chances that you'll get on that floor. Did you get on the floor?
You did. My senior year. 4 years it took us working together to get there, but we did it.
But you got there. And when you got there, you were ready, and you put on a show. You put on a show. Instead of being crippled and overwhelmed and angry and frustrated and not working as hard as you could, you worked your heart out. And when your name was called, girl, you put on a show. But you bought into, in the first year, you struggled mightily.
Yes.
But by that
I was mentally ill, I would say. I think I was depressed, anxiety. I didn't have a language for it. I'm sure you maybe saw it more than I did. But like when I look back on it, I was like, yeah, I was real low.
Yeah.
Really low.
But you deliberately and intentionally transform the way that you think. So therapy is not magic. Medication is not magic. Medication without the therapy it might work, might not.
Yeah.
But the therapy is not an elixir. You don't have. I'm not a magician. All I did was ask you to listen to yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you treat yourself, how you allow other people to influence how you feel about yourself, and then ask you to explain to me, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And you become the world's greatest expert on one subject. What's that?
Me.
Yes. At least in the way that I do it, my obsession is to teach you to become so gifted and talented at seeing what's working in the way you think and the way that you behave, and what's not working based on the way you think and the way you behave. All I got to do is train you to be mindful of how you think and how you behave. And when you behave in a certain way, how are you thinking? And then all of a sudden, you begin to see, not me. My being able to see what's working and what's not working is nice. But if I can't teach you how to do it, I fail. And all of a sudden, you became so sophisticated in analyzing how you processed information, how you took criticism. You decreased your being overly sensitive to criticism. I mean, you were so clear about, at a certain point, you were getting a little cocky. And so, but the magic comes when you're saying, whether you're on the court or not on the court, how you feel about you must not be based on whether you play.
Or what my coaches thought, what my teammates thought, or what anyone else thought of me. But that is the struggle I think that everyone goes through, whether you're playing sports or whether you're in adult life and you think your job is everything that defines you. So what was the process like for me, or what you took me through to like get to the point where I finally was able to see myself in the light that you saw me in? Because you saw the best in me before I could see the best in me. I didn't see that I was special, or not special. I don't know if I like that word, but just unique and worthy and all of the things that you saw me to be. So how do you get somebody to empower themselves to think that highly of themselves in a way where they're not cocky or arrogant or whatever, nobody wants to be around and all that stuff?
Well, you begin to give them you begin to help them understand that there are only a few formulas that you can guarantee. And one formula is if you increase your ability to love yourself in a healthy way and to accept yourself, flaws and all, it changes the whole dynamic. If you teach someone to understand how important it is to learn to control what?
The controllables.
If you learn to control the controllables, you instantly have to understand, if you buy into the concept, it's a concept. What the heck does control the controllables mean? It means that at a certain point, you've got to realize I can't control coaches. I can't control my boss. I can't control much of anything. I can barely control my dog. And self-control is hard as all get out, but I've got a shot at it. I've got a shot at in controlling how I think, how I respond to adversity, how I treat triumph and disaster. I get to decide how I'm going to see myself in the midst of madness and chaos. I can pursue order. I can pursue happiness as a planned activity. I can give 100% of the time if I choose to. I can decide. And so all we're doing is coaching. All I'm doing, this is not just inspiration and hype. I'm coaching you to begin to have phrases in your head that can alter and neutralize the negative phrases. What we have is habits. And everybody understands the concept of bad habit, but they forget that if I understand the concept of bad habits, that means I understand habits. And my bad habits didn't come instantly, they grew over time. And I practiced, trained, and rehearsed until it was my habit. Hence, I can change habits. I can add good habits. And what we're talking about is adding habits in terms of how I talk to myself, how I see myself, catching myself when I'm tripping, dipping, and slipping down that road into negativity and self-hate and self-loathing. And so it doesn't work for everybody. But when it works, it works pretty darn good.
It does.
And so all we're doing is getting people to really understand that change is part of life. Mm-hmm. You can be a part of change or you have your butt kicked. Take your pick. And changing the way I think, changing my attitude, being critically conscious of how I think, you can train yourself to do it. Mm-hmm. You trained yourself. You allowed me to train you. And then you trained yourself to catch yourself when you trip it. Mm-hmm. Catch yourself when you're wallowing in self-despair, in despair and not accepting yourself as is. Mm-hmm. So you can, it's just like, again, physical fitness. You have to train. Sometimes you have to deprogram and reprogram yourself, but you have to train yourself to stop thinking the way you used to think and to think differently. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, yes, I lived it. So it absolutely does. But I still feel like I have to go back to that, to the basics of what we worked through of like, okay, how I'm processing things and like talking through my jungle gym of a brain of everything. I mean, especially because the nature of the industry that I work in now is similar in that it's a performance. You are being evaluated. A lot of it's constantly from all different angles. So what kind of techniques do you advise, I guess, or what did you advise me through, or that you continue to still advise me through when I get caught up in the external noise of what other people are saying about me or what other people are determining about me? What are the techniques?
Let me break something down for you.
Yeah.
We think that if we are in treatment or in therapy or in counseling or someone's coaching us mentally, once we got it, we got it. I said you have to compare it to physical fitness.
Yeah.
If you are, you have been in show enough shape in your life, better than the average person can comprehend. You've been in Division I athletic shape.
God, those were the days.
Understand? Yeah. And so all of a sudden, I mean, and what happens if you take 2 weeks off?
You're done.
2 weeks. What?
You're done.
you're done, and you have to start all over. But what people think about if they come into my office, oh my God, I feel so good. I'm so ready. I got it. You make so much sense, G. And then I don't see them for 3 months. Guess what? When I see them again, they're back at day one. So the advice and the recommendation to any and everyone is to constantly reinforce the training, the coaching, the counseling. You've got to find people who you can trust and put them in your life who can give you that reinforcement, who can give you booster shots so that you're not sitting up wondering, why am I going backwards instead of forward? It's human behavior. So if you get out of shape, you out of shape. If you get injured, hurt in a relationship, at a job, you got to pony up and go to PT. Right? So you still have to have therapy, counseling, coaching, if you can't do it by yourself. Sometimes you're so self-motivated, so driven that you can dismiss it at a certain. That happens sometimes, but there are times when you cannot dismiss what just happened. So you've got to consider getting a third party who can see it from a different angle.
Yeah.
Who can say, have you thought about this? Who can remind you to look back at the time that you went through this before. How did you get out of it? So mental fitness, you have to practice, train, and rehearse over and over and over again until it becomes just second nature.
Yeah. And it's a daily thing. What are some of the daily habits or some of the positive habits that you like that are top of your list that you constantly reinforce with your clientele?
To listen to their inner voice, to be totally in tune with what their thoughts are when things are going well, what their thoughts are when things are going bad, what their thoughts are when they are depressed, what their thoughts are when they're happy, to be so in tune and that they could collect data about what's going on so they can see when they're headed in the wrong direction, because they have data that says, when I start thinking and talking to myself like this, ooh, I know where I'm headed. When I talk to myself like this, I know how I'll recover. It may not be as fast as I want, but I know I will recover and I will bounce back. So you teach people to listen to, you're a great friend to everyone except you.
Yes.
You're an amazing listener to everyone except you.
Yes.
You listen so well. And I'm asking you, and I'll ask anyone, to be more consistent with how they listen to themselves and how they talk to themselves. That's a critical piece to the puzzle.
Do you have them journal it out or just talk it out with you?
The best way is they're not with me 24/7.
Yeah, I wish I was though, because I could use it.
They have to monitor. Sometimes you have to. I mean, one of the tricks was I would have somebody walk around with a notepad. Now would be their phone.
Exactly.
and every time that they had a negative thought, just write a note, make a check, and put down the time, and discover how often they do it. And sometimes people get overwhelmed. Oh my God, I'm more negative than I thought. But all of a sudden, what we're going to simply do is try to telescope and reduce, because we can't eliminate all our thinking, but we can reduce it, and then we can reframe it, and we can alter it. But we have to be in tune and in touch, critically aware of how we're thinking. So chronicling, journaling, I think journaling is one of the best things you could do. I've got a student I hadn't seen in 100 years who showed up and wanted to chat, and they had their old notebook from 5 years ago. and they were going through it and reinforcing and coming to get charged back up. But what it kept them sane in an insane place was their journal. What I really like is a 1 second. I hope it's not like a mirror image. I hope you can actually read what this says.
Gratitude journal.
Yes.
Yes.
What's a gratitude journal?
You write down things every day that you're grateful for.
Ooh, think about that.
Yeah. The power of gratitude. Why is it so powerful? Because it pulls you out of your selfish thinking.
Yes. Remember when I taught you, one of the things I taught you was like when you're in practice, you're in a game and your mind starts tripping.
Oh God, it does all the
Get
time.
out of your head and start talking to someone else. Build somebody else up.
Yeah.
Tell them how much you appreciate what they're doing. All of a sudden, you're talking to somebody, building them up. You have to be believable.
Yeah.
And if you're not believable, it's not going to work. So when we are reinforcing others and appreciate others, it increases the chances that we will appreciate ourselves.
Yeah.
And we will hear them when they say back, no, I'm just trying to be like you. Oh, come on. But it opens up the door because you have to believe what you're saying. One of the beauties of my job is like I'm constantly encouraging people to be healthy, happy, and sane. Mm-hmm. Well, in order to do it, I've got to believe this stuff I'm telling them. Yeah. And to believe it, I have to reinforce it in my own head. And when I'm coaching you, I'm coaching myself. If I can't see myself in you, I'm not effective. I mean, I'm 100 years old and I'm still working with 18-year-olds and have the audacity to see myself in them and try to teach them to see that when it comes down to emotions, passion, hunger for success, fear of failure, it's human behavior. Mm-hmm. The other thing I try to teach people, anyone that will listen, is to normalize the concept of fear.
Yes, that's a huge one. Fear and self-doubt.
Fear and self-doubt is the greatest enemy you will ever face in this life.
I still have that written down.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
But
I do. It's true.
In the world that we live in, you're supposed to be fearless. Well, most fearless folks are either drunk or crazy. Right? I'm 155 pounds and I'm going to go after this 300-pound cat in a bar. I'm drunk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I'm loony. So it's really important that you begin to be so sophisticated that you understand that fear is part of being human. Mm-hmm. Some of the greatest moments of your life, some of the greatest adventures you've ever been on, you're about to crap your pants before you did it. Am I right or wrong? Some of the most fun you've ever had, you're about to crap your pants. There's a thin line between anxiety and excitement. A thin line. Mm-hmm. So you have to train yourself to anticipate that you're going to be anxious. It makes sense before the cameras are about to roll. You're about to go in front and it's showtime. 3, 2, 1. All of a sudden, I mean, before it starts, you're like, and it's showtime.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome to
just a touch more on the voice there.
It shifts. You turn anxiety into excitement and passion. You turn fear into passion. So fear, if we begin to understand that fear, sometimes it makes sense that you're terrified. Duh. Mm-hmm. But courage is what? Your definition. Anyone. Courage. What's courage?
Is vulnerability.
You have to be vulnerable. Yes, go ahead.
Vulnerability matched with the strength to face fear.
Say what?
The strength.
What was the last? What were the last two? Face fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Yeah. It's facing fear. Mm-hmm. In fact, the word courage has no meaning unless fear is a factor. Mm-hmm. You were so courageous. Why did you run? I wasn't thinking. When you have the greatest game of your life, what are you thinking?
When I have the greatest game of my life, you weren't thinking.
When you're thinking, you have the worst game of your life.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I get into trouble always, and my brain runs rampant. You know this.
Just like overthinking, overindulging in the negatives. So we're talking about, again, retraining.
Yes.
But most importantly, understanding that fear is part of being human. It's human
So
to
how do
be
you manage
fearful.
it? How do you teach kids to
So
manage
instead,
that and keep it, but not let it overtake you and rule you?
the way I teach it is helping people understand that if someone tells you just be fearless and don't be afraid, they might not know what they're talking about. But if someone can tell you and train you to understand this concept, and
Mm-hmm.
this is a tricky one, it's all a game, a word game. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead of telling you to stop being afraid, I'm going to tell you, stop being afraid of being afraid.
Mm. I think you've told me that one before.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Because what happens, we get fearful and then we start panicking.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, well, it makes sense to be, I'm about to take the biggest test of my life. Oh my God, this test is going to decide whether I get into law school. This test is going to decide whether I get into medical school. This is the test goes, oh my God. It makes sense that I'm anxious. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. All right. I've done all, and then I get the process. I've done all I can do. I've
Right.
studied my heart out, and I'm going to do my best. That's all I can do. All I can do is the best. All I can do is give 100%. If it works, cool. But this is the hard one.
Mm-hmm.
They all have been hard. Okay, I get it. But the hard part is I'm going to give 100%, win, lose, or draw.
Mm-hmm.
If you're afraid to fail, you're afraid to succeed.
Yes.
You've got to
That's a
be
mic drop.
willing to face the fear of failure. See, when we talk about fear, you got to put a whole list: fear of failure, fear of relationships.
Oh my God.
fear
Yeah.
of
It's
taking
endless.
risks, fear of, and the fear. So there is it's fear of boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So you gotta chronicle and be aware of all your fears.
Where do you think that fear comes from? Is that a childhood thing, like an early childhood implantation of patterning getting absorbed from?
It's called a survival tool.
That's right. That's right.
That's
Gotta
a
get it
bear.
out.
Shit. It's time to go.
We gotta go. Round them
Right?
up.
Flight
Yeah.
or fight. When fear hits, you got to decide whether it's time to boogie and get out or time to pony up and face it. You've got to make an instant decision.
Mm-hmm.
So fear is not just a negative. Fear of snakes makes total sense to me.
Yes. And spiders.
You understand? And not the kind of fear that is overwhelming and cripples you. I'm talking about fear of a poisonous snake.
Yeah.
If a rattlesnake comes in the room, you should be smart enough to avoid it. Fear is the thing that says you need to get up on that chair, on that table, and figure out how you're going to get out of this room. So fear is it's part of life. It's part of being human. And it's not all negative. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it does. It does. And it's a daily thing. I feel like daily, in certain ways, you have to almost face fear, or at least I feel like I'm facing fear daily of a lot of things. I think fear of failure is a huge one for a lot of people. I think one of the big things you had to teach me too was stop fearing your own ability to shine in whatever way that means, because I was afraid of exuding my big personality and being myself because I didn't want to make anyone else feel
Uncomfortable. They may not like me. Trying to get everybody to like you is a recipe for disaster.
Oh,
If everybody likes you, that means you don't stand for anything.
right.
You don't believe in anything. You are not going to agree. Everybody's not going to agree with you. Everybody's not going to like you. Mm-mm. There's some people that have no business not liking you because you've given them no reason to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And if you don't get okay with the fact that everyone's not going to like you, you're going to be dazed and confused all your life.
Oh my God, that's so true.
And so what I teach anyone that'll listen, can you imagine, again, people like to talk about Tom Brady, which makes total sense to me. Imagine telling Tom Brady, I don't care what your coaches think of me.
Yeah.
All I care about is what you think.
Mm-hmm. How did he take that?
Look, how did he take it? Tom Brady is one of the most coachable young people I've ever met in my entire life. Desmond Howard and Tom Brady are my poster children.
Yes.
And it's not because of their stardom, it's because of their coachability. How you going to have a 19-year-old say, I've decided to ask for help and I want your support?
Yeah.
You know, Desmond Howard studied me for like a year and a half before he'd even talked to me. And he walks in and says, hey, I think I can learn something from you. Who are you? You're 19. He asked me like 20 questions about why do you do this? Why do you talk like that? Why do you do in front of the group? You do this, and this. Is that on purpose? How old are you? You know, Tom would come in every Friday before a game, sit down and say, what you got? Because, and I'm going to tell you, being coachable is something that's hard for us to capture.
Mm-hmm.
And using consultants. There are people that don't want to go to counseling.
Yeah, because
go ahead.
Because I think they're afraid of facing the shadowy aspects of themselves, the cold hard truths.
And sometimes it's simply I don't trust anybody with my secrets, my inner self. And so I try to teach people to see counselors as consultants.
I like
who you
that.
hire and fire.
I like
if it's
that.
a good match, keep them. If not, next, bring me another one. If I'm running a multi-billion-dollar company, they pay me a small fortune. Say that I'm running something that you heard of, and they pay me a minimum of $15 million a year as my salary. I didn't talk about my perks and all that. I'm just talking about my salary.
Yeah.
$15 million a year. Do I use consultants?
Yes.
Why would I need consultants? If you paying me $15 million, you should know every bloody thing. Why do I need consultants?
Because everyone needs it.
I don't know everything, and I can't see everything. I can't see myself. I can't see. I'm in the picture. So I need people from the outside of me who can see it from a different perspective to give me a clue on what's working and what's not working.
Mm-hmm.
So counseling is crucial, and you need to see them as consultants.
I love that.
Who you simply are calling in to help you solve a problem.
Because it used to be a stigma attached to it. Like when it's come a long way, but when I used to tell people like, yeah, I worked with a sports psychologist for 4 years. I mean, obviously you were more than that. I would have you walk me down the aisle if God forbid something happened to my dad. But that kind of stigma has gotten better to a degree. I think people used to think like, oh, only crazy people need therapists, only crazy people need a counselor. And it's like, no, it just is like your guidepost to finding the truth of who you are and navigating the truth of your life and keeping you on track.
Preach. Go ahead.
Keeping you on track from getting back in that negative downward spiral
that
got you there in the first place.
Well, first off, I am not a sports psychologist. Okay, I'm a humble little social worker. My training is in psychology and social
Well, whatever. You were my
primary focus is social work, and I'm a clinical therapist by training and by trade.
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is I'm a consultant.
My consultant.
Yes, ma'am.
You're a lot more expensive after college, I'll tell you that. What'd you say?
At some point, you're going to pay me.
I know. I need to, actually. I haven't been able to find a good one here in Chicago, so I need to trade.
Yeah, well, I tell you what.
I think you're too expensive for me.
The beauty of all this is to teach people something that you learn.
Yeah.
And that's if you learn to laugh at yourself, you'll always have something to smile about.
That's so true. That was so how I got to the national level so quickly, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
Television. And you, again, once again, were one of the only people that also believed that I should pursue this, because I remember sitting in your chair, I was doing medical device sales, and I was like,
And you
Greg,
were good at it. Yes, you were good at it.
I was good at it, but like I hated it. I was like, I mean, I could be good at sales, but I was like, everyone deserves the product. Why can't I just give it to them for free? They're like, that's not sales, Michelle. I'm like, okay, I give up. But I don't know why I was so drawn to sports broadcasting, but I sat down in your chair and I said, I have no experience to lean on. I am miserable at this medical device job, but I'd have great benefits, money, all the things that you hang your self-worth on. Check, check,
Yes,
check.
yes.
The risk was going after what I believed to be my passion.
And your willingness to face fear and failure.
And I was willing.
Come on.
You helped me make that jump, and I was willing to fall flat on my face and say that I tried. Because what would life be if I looked back and I said, man, I never went after that early childhood dream that I had.
Boom.
But you helped me see that, because if it weren't for you, I would have just thought I was a worthless piece of something that couldn't practice volleyball very well.
Let me make it real clear so that no one's confused that I have a structured, well-structured, healthy ego. And my ego wants to remind you, you allowed me to help. I can be real good. It doesn't matter what I see. You allowed me to support you, to push you, to pull you, to prod you, to poke you, and say, have you considered this? Have you thought about it this way? Let's reframe it. Don't walk in my office talking about I can't. Talk about it's difficult, it's challenging, it's hard for me. But if you say can't, you might as well leave.
Yeah.
If you walk in telling me I can't do it, then I can't. I really can't help you then. But you allowed me.
How did you get me to find myself again? Because that was fundamental in my life. Like, how do you, and me, and you see hundreds of thousands of me, like, how do you get people to see themselves and to find themselves?
I don't know. I just do the best I can with the little I just give them 100% of what I got. And that's it. That's all I can do is give you 100, give you 100%, 100% of the time. And I'm trying to model what I'm teaching. I'm simply trying to model what I'm teaching. And so I believe it and I'm acting it out, and you see it. You see me having you come in to be depressed and I'm having a good time. I'm all of a sudden I got you laughing at the boy you date.
So true. Oh my God, yes.
You dating a fool. Oh, you're dating a fool.
Contenders only. Haven't we been over this?
Come on. So all I do, so it's a lot of things that you do, and you figure out one of them's going to work. And you just keep trying until you find an opening, a door. There's some people I have to be so serious, I get a headache.
Yeah.
Because you can tell that they're not ready to laugh.
Yeah.
And certainly not ready to laugh at themselves. So there's no one way. There's no one way to get the job done. You've got to adapt, adjust, read, and be prepared to give people different opportunities. Because everyone learns differently. Some are going to learn if they are having a good time. Some are going to learn if you're identified as the world's expert. Some are going to learn if you are using the science and all the data to tell them how to do it. Some are going to learn because they saw their best friend do it and they want to copy it. So it's no one way to get people to open up and see the world differently.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And you mentioned some of the challenges in your TED Talk. You brought up so many good points that you recently were able to do. One of them, you had a hilarious line about white people, and it was hilarious. I was dying.
I did not say anything about white people.
Yeah, you did. I was dying.
And my wife told me, my wife says, do not say that. And I
I'm
couldn't.
so glad you did.
And all of a sudden, it just came out, and I was stumbling about my life and growing up in the '60s, '70s, and the
Right.
hate that hate made, and then all of a sudden, how to survive, you've got to, they hate us, we hate them, and I
Yeah.
kept trying to hate white people. I tried so hard, and it was just too much work, and it's just like I got worn out. It was just too many of them.
That's what it was. That's
And
exactly
so I had to give up hating white folks. And,
what
and I also suggested that I gave it up for Lent one year. What would be difficult to give up? Chocolate? Meat? I know. Hatred? That would be a real challenge.
um
I'm a sick person. I know.
No, you're not. That's hilarious. And then that's something too I want to touch on. I know we only have a short amount of time, but how were you able to navigate the challenges that you maybe even haven't elaborated on here, but just from a racial standpoint of navigating a lot of adversity through the road you had to go on to get to where you are?
Well, I was crazy enough to believe that racism was a construct and designed by men to maintain power and control.
Yeah.
And so once you begin to understand that this is human behavior, which is frightening, xenophobia, homophobia, and it's what humans do. They find something in the other person that's different from them that they don't like. And so all of a sudden racism became predictable to me instead of like the boogeyman. I was tired of seeing racism as the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And I began to see racism is the way that people operate inside in what we learned in social 100, in group, out group. So I began to see white folks as human beings, which was a real challenge because they had characterized us as enemy and evil and all like this. And so, of course, we characterized them as insane and evil and, and devils. And so I began to realize that I would never be able to communicate effectively with the other brother if I wasn't able to see him as a human being.
Wow.
And that his children didn't come out the womb racist. They were trained and taught to be racist. White folks ain't racist because they were born that way. They're socialized, programmed, and brainwashed into it. And so, unfortunately, my curse is I see the whole picture.
Yeah.
And so rather than getting caught up into one-dimensional, I don't want people to see me one-dimensionally, so I can't afford to see them as one-dimensional. Right. And then I had then God has a sense of humor, and I kept running into coherent white children and people who were like warm and fuzzy and like committed to trying to be, have character. And so, oh my God. And it was hard.
That's hard.
It's hard to hate some people when you run into them.
But it's hard to know that you're like also being targeted for equally malicious, like for what you had to go through too. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's hard, but it's also hard to understand that the hate that hate makes consumes the hater.
Yeah.
You want to go deep? I had to get it. I was trying to get ulcers. My back hurt. My head hurt. I'm constantly in fear and paranoid. I got sick of it. And I'm not going to let anybody else's hatred destroy me from the inside out.
Isn't that interesting how it all manifests physically when you're not well internally? Because
at a certain point, it don't matter what you think of me. All that matters
is what I think of me.
This has been a wonderful adventure. Your podcast is going to be fantastic, just like you.
Well, you have to come back on because we have so much unfinished business on here.
Well, anytime, any place, anywhere, just to hang out with you is, as Les Brown used to say, is a plum pleasing pleasure.
Oh, you're the best. Gee, you are the best. You are truly one of a kind. There is nobody like you. I can't find a counselor because there's nobody like you. So I'm just going to go ahead and hang up that hope right now. But yeah, you saved my life. You saved many of lives, many of which we don't even know about. But, deeper than the stars of the world, you are somebody that has impacted so many people. And my goodness, I don't know where I'd be without you. I don't know if I'd be here. Honestly, I don't think I would be.
Well, that's one way to look at it. And I appreciate you saying it. And it makes me feel good on the inside. But again, you did the work.
Well, thank you. Thank you for providing me with the insightful work and with the tools to navigate the craziness that is human life.
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
hard.
Hey, but your mission, what? Is to stay sane in an insane world.
That's so true. And like yourself along the way, because it's so
Come
much more
on.
fun that way.
It's that deep. It's that simple. It's not easy. Simple and easy are two different constructs.
Yeah.
But simple, the simple piece, self-love and self-acceptance. I'm
Boom.
out.
Mic drop. Walks out. All right. You're the best, Greg. You nailed it. What's
Talk to you later, my friend.
Okay.